Konfliktit, mielenosoitukset ja sensuuri. Nämä ovat sanoja, jotka usein määrittävät kuvaamme Pohjois-Afrikasta. Saharan alueen maissa väestön ikärakenne on päinvastainen kuin Suomessa. Väestöstä lähes puolet on alle 25-vuotiaita. Minkälaisia haasteita ja mahdollisuuksia tämä tuo alueelle, joka on monin paikoin hyvin rauhaton? Studiossa vieraina libyalainen toimittaja ja ihmisoikeusaktivisti Sana El-Mansoura ja Tampereen yliopiston rauhan ja konfliktin tutkimuskeskuksen emeritusprofessori Tuomo Melasua. So, welcome to the studio. We have Libyan journalist Sana El-Mansoura and professor at Tampere University, Tuomo Melasua. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Sana, would you start with telling a little bit of what you do?
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm a TV journalist or presenter and a journalist. I am also an activist and I speak for women's rights in Libya and the Amazigh people, the native people of North Africa, which known in the Western society as Berber, but we don't use that term. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
Okay. We are here today to discuss about human rights situation in North Africa and Libya in specifically, and especially how young people are dealing there right now. What would you say is the human rights situation in North Africa at the moment?
It's varying very much from one country to other. Maybe the worst situation is exactly Libya and Mali today because of the different conflicts and war situation. In the countries like Tunisia, Morocco and even Algeria, it is improving but very slowly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know much about Mali because I wasn't in there, but I follow some of the civil societies, activists and groups in Mali, especially the women groups, because they had a very strong women movement in let's say Azawad, the Amazigh people in Mali, who they didn't want to, they want no longer to be under the command of the government of Mali there. The young people, I think the young people in general in North Africa, even before, they did not have their rights to be leaders, to be in the government. And we have this culture strange theory in Libya especially, is that young people, they don't have experience, so they can't lead and they can't hold positions in the ministries and take part in making political decisions. And I disagree completely with that because let's use Libya as an example. You have groups of anti-regime before when Gaddafi was alive, and let's say these people, they were in these organizations and outside Libya as asylum seekers, probably for 40 years. So they're now age of 60, 65 and 70, and after the revolution which was led by the young people in the fields, they come back with their own programs, which I think it shouldn't work now, or at least it doesn't apply to the circumstances and the situations in Libya. And they have no idea what Libyan people need and what the Libyan situation is. And they lead those political parties. They held positions and they lead political parties. And you look at these political parties and it's like, it's very old people, I'm sorry, but they are, with old ideas, and probably they're not even aware of the needs. So one of the reasons I think why the success didn't reach Libya, and we are in the situation where the conflict is there, is because they didn't give a chance to young people. Yeah. And even those who they didn't have the opportunity to have high education, they should be trained, and instead of them going looking for opportunities, getting money from the leaders of the political parties and join the militias, they should get a chance to earn education, and they should be given the chance to lead and be there and make political decisions. Same as for women, by the way.
What is the age structure like in North African countries?
Well, usually it's more or less half of the population is less than 25, grosso modo.
Yeah.
And maybe 75 is less than 35. So it's upside down what we have here in the north. And of course it has a very strong impact on social and economic situation and the needs and problems what you face there.
How does it show on the problems?
Well, I personally think that these socio-economic living conditions of the young people and the youth in North Africa is the key issue in near future, and there we should somehow be able to propose a kind of positive vision and do something in the next coming 5 years. Otherwise, we are really facing against the wall. You can start by saying that there is a question of education. They need both the basic and secondary education, but also either the professional education, either the higher education. We just this morning heard about the higher education situation in Algeria, and apparently it was much worse I was expecting, and I've been following the Algerian evolution since last 45 years. So I was rather unhappy to hear how bad the situation is, and I was also
Would you say a few words of what is the situation there in education?
In education, the quality has gone down for several reasons. Then there is, of course, the problem of housing, which is something very important. As it's the Muslim country, and let's say the sexual life is not like here in the north. The only way that the young people have a normal life is to get married, and they cannot get married because there is not housing. So this is something which affects a very sensitive areas in human life. Then you have, of course, the question of health. It's the third one, I would say, and the employment. If there is no way to get some kind of working position, you don't get independent for your family neither, and you are depending on your parents, which has an impact on your life. So all the four elements what I was saying, school, housing, health, and employment are somehow connected, and you should solve little by little all of them in order to have a more, let's say, more easy future.
Does this sound familiar to you, this Algerian situation?
Yes, very similar, only worse, Libya. We have it the other way around, where obviously education is very important. Not everybody goes to the education field that they wish for, that they plan, that they want. They find themselves directed one way or another for several reasons. We don't have the qualified teachers and professors in Libya. Most of them are not in Libya. They're teaching somewhere else in Europe because of the salaries and because of the type of employment. The biggest reason why the young people are not getting good opportunities is because first education, and then when they're finished, even if they finished and they had high grades, they don't find the correct jobs. So they either they depend on their families and open a business, open a shop or a coffee shop or something like that, and run a shop that they go into marketing, or again houses. Their families are the ones who they provide the land and then build a house for them to get married. There's another huge problem is the centralized system. Most of the universities are in the capital. So those faraway cities, they have to send their young daughters and sons to go and live in the city, and because Islam has a lot to do with it in the culture. Mostly the culture, because most of the people are Muslims, or almost people Muslims in Libya, but there are families who they do let their daughters go and live outside their family house and find another family that they know in that city, or boarding houses, boarding schools, university, and they do let them sometimes even go outside the country to study. But the other families who they are very strictly worry about the culture, they don't allow their young daughters to go out of the city to earn education. So then she will choose the easy option and do the high education, which is a little college in the town, to become a teacher, would teach primary school. And even that system is not correct, scientifically is not perfect. So these are most of the problems. Now, with the situation of war in Libya, most young people, they go join militias because there's a fixed salary from those political parties. They give them the money, so it's easy for them to join the militias and drive a nice car and be in control. And it's a very, very scary situation. Like the professor said, we are facing a black tunnel at the end.
So how do you see it? Will it improve, or is the conflict going to end?
I don't think it will end unless the UN starts talking to civil society, to civilians, to the bodies of the social civilizations, associations, and not to the political parties who they led this conflict in the first place. I think the UN needs to stop talking to the criminals who they committed the crimes and led the country into a very bad conflict and committed crimes by even killing innocents, or they were the cause of lots of innocents' death. And instead of putting them on a table where they have a dialogue, they're a bunch of criminals having a dialogue, and then then give them the opportunities to put their people in positions of the government. And then when they go back, they're not too happy because this party doesn't have enough ministries, and this party doesn't have enough ministries, and one of them would say no, and then the other one would say okay, and we carry on like this. I think the UN needs to talk to civilized people, talk to the civil society, and find young people who they were not involved in the conflict and train them. And we'll waste time anyway. We've been waiting for how many years now? More than 4 years to have a government in our country, and it didn't happen with the method that they're using. So if they go back and start training young people who they were not involved in the conflict, and help them to be the leaders and help them to be politicians, is I think better than compromising with criminals.
Yes. What about you? How do you see? Obviously, the young people are getting older all the time. So how is the situation going to look in 5 years, 10 years in North Africa?
Well, there will be new young people. So I don't think the age pyramid will change very quickly. I don't think so. But as I said, I pay a lot of attention to the young people. I think the hope is there, and especially the young ladies. I think they are the future of Maghreb. I have been saying this already 20 years. And then for many reasons, mostly personal observation, but I have seen since 80s, even earlier, very, very dynamic and open-minded young ladies in all the North African countries. Libya is the country I know the less, unfortunately. But in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Algeria, you have very promising young people in general. Once, about 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to be in a conference in Marseille, which was organized for the young North African economic start-uppers. It was fascinating. It was fascinating to see the young businessman, about 35 years old, who has spent first studies in both the basic academic studies, university studies in North Africa, then some specialization in Europe, then about 5 or 10 years experience in European working life, and going back to North Africa and creating his own society. And meeting them to talk between themselves was very, very interesting and very promising at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.